In this video, I'm going to share 7 customer service tips and techniques to help grow your business. I'm Jeff Mowatt. For over 30 years, I've been hired to speak at conferences and do seminars for companies on how to grow their business. When it comes to boosting revenues, a lot of people think that the best way to do that is to find new customers. Well, ironically, that's the last thing we should do. Ignoring our existing customers to chase new customers is akin to trying to fill water in a leaky bucket. You spend all this time and energy trying to fill the bucket when in fact we'd have more impact by plugging the holes. In other words, preventing customers from leaving. So let's look at the top 7 reasons we lose customers, along with customer service tips and techniques to keep them coming back. One reason we lose customers is assuming that customers appreciate good service. Well, heavens, they don't actually notice good service. I mean, think of this yourself. Imagine that you go into a coffee shop and you get a cup of your favorite coffee and it's the right price that you agreed to, it's good coffee, and they were prompt with their service. It's not like when you walk away from this thing, you go, oh, wow, that was a sensational experience. I'm going to phone 5 of my friends and tell them they got to go to this coffee shop. Not likely. What's more likely is that as you walk away with your coffee, you're on to the next thing. What can I do? What's next on my to-do list? Where do I need to go? What time is it right now? We hardly even notice good service. In fact, ironically, most people, when it comes to service, the only time they pay attention is when there's bad service, is when it's too long or the coffee doesn't taste right. So our challenge then to retain customers is to make our customer service remarkable. And by remarkable, I mean it's literally people are compelled to remark on it, to talk about it. Well, fortunately, that's a lot easier than it sounds. Actually, all we need to do is choose our words a little more thoughtfully. Compare, for example, when you're asking a customer, do you want us to deliver it? Or actually, half the time it's more like, yo, like, you want delivery, bro? Contrast that kind of a question to, would it be helpful if we delivered it for you to save you a trip? See, we're still offering the same thing, but we chose our words a little different. We didn't ask, do you want to? In other words, are you in the mood? Or is this a chore? Or instead, we're asking, would it be helpful? Would it be useful? That's an easier way for people to say yes to. All it takes is a little bit of training in communication skills. Incidentally, if you do like these types of tips, then be sure to like below and subscribe for more of these tips as I release them. That brings us to the number 2 reason that we lose customers, and that is establishing customer service as a department. It's kind of like a farm implement dealership that brought me in to train all of their employees. As the general manager and I are chatting about the type of training that they're looking for, he's saying to me, Jeff, it drives me crazy. A customer walks into a front showroom and the service people who are standing around because the salespeople maybe are busy are ignoring them going, oh, that's sales department. Or as the customer walks through from the showroom into the service department, the sales reps ignore them entirely going, oh gosh, that's service department. And same with parts. He said, it drives me crazy because it's the same customer. And so the lesson for all of us is rather than setting up a customer service department, which means that other people kind of ignore the customer as it's not their department, instead, if we focus on training all employees on taking ownership and how to take ownership, even if they don't have the answer, they will find somebody in that department for the customer so that the customer can be taken care of. So setting up a customer service department actually probably does more harm than good. And the alternative is let's just train everybody on taking ownership of taking care of your customers. It's all the same customer. The 3rd reason we tend to lose customers is that we measure sales versus customer satisfaction. Pretty typical for companies to measure what are our sales numbers, what are our revenue numbers. It's an easy thing to measure. The problem is that sales tells you how you did at the past. But if you want to predict how your company is going to continue to do in the future, Customer satisfaction is a much more reliable measure. After all, a customer who's delighted is much more likely to come back and spend more money with us. So the question is, well, how do you measure customer satisfaction? Well, there are literally dozens of ways of measuring customer satisfaction. Essentially, they're all asking, how satisfied are you? Which is like being in a restaurant and the server asking, how's the meal? To which our answer might be fine, which is another word for meh. And meh doesn't tell us very much. So there is a magic follow-through question that I encourage our clients to have their frontline staff ask of all of their customers. And the magic question is this: after you ask how our service is or how satisfied you are as a customer, then we should ask that customer, what can we do to improve our service? And the idea is that after the customers have said something nice about you, yes, your service is fine, when you ask them that follow-on question, what can we do to improve our service? That's when you get the truth. And by adapting to those suggestions that you receive from customers, you're likely to continuously improve and continue to grow your business over the long term. So the idea is that we shouldn't focus so much on revenues. What we really should be focusing on is customer satisfaction levels. The number 4 reason we tend to lose customers is rewarding longevity over quality of service. So in other words, we reward people because they've been around for 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 years, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But what we should be focusing on is what's the quality of their service. So one of the ways we talk about with our clients about how can we have a more customer-focused, continually improving workforce is by staging what I call monthly CAST meeting. And CAST, C-A-S-T, stands for Customer Service Team Meeting. And the idea is within a customer service team meeting, one of the things that we cover, there's 5 fundamentals there, but one of the things that we cover is what I call service legends. And in service legends, you're going to take an example of one employee, not everybody, but one employee who went above and beyond to deliver exceptional service. So one example was a Crown Corporation client that I was working for, where a manager, when we were staging a CAST meeting, pointed out the example of the great service by Robert. Now, this is an insurance company, and essentially what Robert did is when the customer canceled their policy, they needed a refund for the unused portion of it. Well, the manager went on to talk about how that customer seemed to the employee to really need the money badly. In fact, she had a baby. She mentioned she needed diapers. So Robert, during lunch, drove over there, dropped off the check personally. Didn't have to do that, but did that because he was just trying to do the right thing for the customer. And so when that manager shared that example, I was in the room and there was one of those slow claps that everyone went, yeah, that's what we did. And they all learned from that example. So the idea of a service legend is that your employees can learn from parables, examples of exceptional service, and they should be rewarded for that by getting the recognition of their peers. That's one of the top 3 motivators for today's employees. So focus more on service excellence when we're rewarding folks as opposed to longevity. So I'm curious, in the comment section below, I'd like to see, what does your company reward your employees for? Is it for longevity or is it for quality of service? So in the comment section below, put in either longevity or service. And let's see what your company rewards most. The number 5 reason we tend to lose customers is we focus on technical skills instead of interpersonal communication skills. Customers evaluate your employees more on their interpersonal communication skills than they do by their technical skills. Let's face it, technical skills tend to be taken for granted. If you are a mechanic or a carpenter or a nurse or a doctor, it is assumed that you have the qualifications to do that technical skill. It is the interpersonal skill that customers judge us by. And think of it this way. If you're not a massive company, like if you're not a Coke, McDonald's, Apple, well, then your brand really is your employees themselves. It's how your customers feel about individual employees. So with those big multi-billion dollar name brands, people have emotional connections to those brands because they've been raised with those brands as part of their life. But for most companies out there who are not household names, and in fact, my company is one of them. I've got 4 people in my company, and gosh, I'm barely a household name in my own home, as it turns out. It's a sad story. Well, there are household name brands that customers have loyalty to, but when it comes to small and medium-sized organizations, your employees are the brand. And what that means for you is if you have one employee who's having an off day when it comes to communicating, it will seriously impact the entire brand. Like, for example, if the employee says something to a customer who's expressing a concern, the employee says, "Oh yeah, well, not a big deal." The customer's going, "Not a big deal. Do you realize how much it took for me to come down here and bring this thing back?" And suddenly the employee has kind of set them off. Versus when the employee is trained with interpersonal communication skills, when a customer expresses a concern, one of the first things the employee says is, "Gosh, that sounds frustrating. All right, listen, your problem just became my problem. I'm going to look into this until it's resolved, and you tell me that you're satisfied." Same scenario, but by changing the communication skills, we dramatically change the perception of our brand. So why do we lose customers? Sometimes we just don't do enough in customer service training around communicating with customers. The number 6 reason we tend to lose customers is a lack of recovery skills. Typical customer service training consists of, okay, here's how you provide the products and services, you process a transaction, and on top of that, you're nice. Well, that will get you as far as the first foul up. And these days, sooner or later, there's going to be a foul up in execution somewhere along the line. And if your employees aren't trained to handle it, all they do is say, "Well, I'll talk to my manager," and all that does is add to the frustration of the customer because they have to repeat it. It's going to take longer to resolve. So one of the most important skills that we can provide for our frontline employees is recovery skills. And it's things like I just demonstrated. It's things like ownership, apology, and empathy. We talked about that just in our last tip. But the other thing that's important in terms of recovery is if we did foul up one way or another, is we give the customer something for the inconvenience. It's not just enough to, okay, we fouled up, here, we fixed it, now we're good. No, we're not good anymore. It costs the customer some time, some money, some inconvenience, some frustration for not getting what they originally contracted for. So if on top of that, we give them something for the inconvenience, and it doesn't have to be material. It could be a phone call the next day just to make sure that they're back on track. Now, that does take some training. It also takes some empowerment, but what a difference it makes because customers realize now that even when things go sideways, this company can be relied upon. And that's when we're being tested. It's not when everything goes well, it's when things go sideways. By the way, you'll find those kinds of recovery tips at jeffsbusinesstips.com. And when you do register to receive them, you'll also receive a bonus, 15 phrases that pay for dealing with customers who are rushed or stressed. Again, you'll find that at jeffsbusinesstips.com. That brings us to our 7th reason why we tend to lose customers, and that is a lack of reinforcement. And by that, I mean a lack of reinforcement to training. So when we work with our customers, there's typically 3 phases to training that you might consider when you're training your employees on how to provide exceptional customer service so that customers do come back. Phase 1 is a customer service training seminar that gives them a foundation on how to earn trust with customers. Every employee should get that training. Phase 2 is reinforcement. It's just like going for a workout somewhere. A one-time workout isn't going to do us much good over the long term. We need to maintain that. So we provide all kinds of reinforcement tools. We give them online courses, tip sheets, phrases that pay, all kinds of ongoing reinforcement for at least a year to keep them going so that it's ingrained. It becomes part of the way that they communicate with their customers. And finally, in phase 3, to give employees the kind of reinforcement they need to own customer service and really understand it, master it, that requires in-house reinforcement. And so one of the things that we do is we equip the managers within companies with a CAST meeting process. And I mentioned this before, CAST, C-A-S-T, stands for Customer Service Team Meeting. And the idea is that once a month, managers and employees get together And they talk about not about staff needs or management needs, but it's about how to provide exceptional customer service. So in CAST meetings, there are several elements. It's establishing your mission and your service standards. It's a coaching moment on what's a tip of the day and how employees might communicate more effectively. It's what's some customer feedback that we're getting, how we're adapting to that feedback. And it's also recognizing and rewarding service legends. And when we do that, we change the culture. It happens in-house, you do it continually, and then your service is seen as being remarkable, exceptional. So let's recap with the top 7 reasons customers may leave. And what I want to invite you to do is in the comments section below, identify which of these reasons customers leave your company has already addressed, it has corrected. You're really good at that. So that's what I'm going to ask you to do in the comments section below. Which ones are you taking care of? One reason customers leave is assuming that customers notice good service. They don't. They notice remarkable service, and often it's just changing a few words. Rather than saying, I'll have to check for you, I'll be happy to check for you. Reason number 2 as to why customers leave, and that is setting up a customer service department. What works more powerfully is training all of our employees who interact with customers at any level to start taking ownership of customer questions and making sure that they go to other departments if they need to, but not send people around to customer service department. Third reason we tend to lose customers is we measure customer revenues as opposed to customer satisfaction levels. And one way of making sure that our customer satisfaction levels are increasing is asking a magic question. Yes, you can ask them how we're doing as a service provider, but then ask the magic question, and that is, what can we do to improve our service? And by adapting to that question, we're going to continually improve customer satisfaction. Fourth reason we tend to lose customers is we reward longevity over service. It's one thing to recognize people for being here a long time. That's valuable as well, employee retention. More important is what is the quality of service they are providing. So let's reward service legends. Fifth reason we tend to lose customers is we focus on technical skills training as opposed to interpersonal skills training. And what customers really notice is the way we're communicating with them. So let's focus on the word choices we make. Rather than, do you want us to drop it off? Would it be helpful if we dropped it off? Sixth reason we lose customers is lack of recovery skills when things go sideways. And to receive those recovery skills training tips, you'll find them for free on me at jeffsbusinesstips.com. And that brings us to the seventh reason why we tend to lose customers, and that is a lack of reinforcement. And it's like getting in shape. One workout isn't going to do us a lot of good, unfortunately. I wish that were the case, or I would have been done years ago. But what we want to do is give them ongoing reinforcement, tips, tools, online courses, cheat sheets, little word tracks that they can use to enhance their impact and grow trust with customers. I'm Jeff Mowatt. I hope you found this to be helpful. And again, if you'd like more of these types of business tips, you'll find them for free at jeffsbusinesstips.com. See you next time.